Hey guys, Colton's hacking on Sonic Boom Fan 101 here.
And today's been iPad Pro M4 and iPhone 15 Pro Max.
Apple's brand new 13-inch M4 iPad Pro, the thinnest Apple device ever, thinner than even an iPod Nano. It's wild to see how far technology has come. But is it durable? Can it survive everyday life? That's what we're here to find out. Hit that subscribe button and buckle in. We're going to see how this iPad is so thin. Inside the box we get a color-matched USB-C cable and a 20-watt charging brick. Thank you very much. But that's it. First thing I noticed on this M4 iPad is that since it's so thin, it's actually difficult to pick up off my desk. And it looks like mine might have arrived with a slight bow in the housing. As someone who works with metal regularly, I can zero out my angle finder on my flat tabletop, set it up against the M4 iPad Pro, and it looks like we are 0.1 degrees off from zero, right out of the box. Splitting hairs, of course, not that I have many to split, but between the milling, heat treating, and warping, I imagine not many of these ultra-thin iPads are going to arrive perfectly flat. 0.1 degrees is better than I was expecting though. And to be honest, while I don't personally yearn for ultra-thin electronics, I can still appreciate that packing all this hardware into such a tiny device is an incredible feat. It really is only 5.1 millimeters thick. For my American audience, that's about the same thickness as 3/4, 7 razor blades, or 1/3 the width of a Ben & Jerry's lid. And just for the record, I am not the Jerry mentioned in Ben & Jerry's, however, I am available for adoption. Where was I? Oh yeah. Apple says that in order to increase the overall structure with decreased thickness, they've added a cowling over the main logic board. That logic board runs through the center of the iPad, and I can even feel that central rib through the top glass with just my fingers. And hopefully we'll be able to see it with our eyeballs in just a few minutes. The most impressive technological addition to the iPads this year, in my opinion, has got to be the tandem OLED display. Let's take a peek at it through my microscope. OLED screens are awesome. The individually lit pixels, as you can see here through the microscope, deliver super crisp and vibrant images. What Apple has done here, for the first time ever, is stack two OLED screens on top of each other. So not only are there 264 pixels per inch, but there are also, apparently, 264 identical pixels below those pixels acting as a backlight. An OLED backlight for an OLED display. This gives us a ridiculous 1000 nits of HDR brightness, with the 1600 nits peak. If you notice, the file icon on the M4 iPad Pro has super long blue diodes, while the iPhone 15 on that same folder icon has much smaller diodes within the exact same footprint. This is actually only because the iPhone 15 OLED has twice the pixel density and is in no way comparable to the tandem OLED conversation, since my microscope only sees in a 2D plane, and tandem OLED exists in 3 dimensions. But it still looks cool and it was worth a shot. The tandem OLED isn't the only thing Apple changed up. There's quite a bit more hardware inside of the Apple Pencil Pro. I'm definitely not the target demographic for a $129 professional pencil, especially when my razor knife is only $15. But I guess it just depends on which side of the tablet you'll be drawing on. As you saw, the tip is removable, and inside that plastic housing is a pressure-sensitive ribbon that can sense minute pressure differences from your fingers. We first saw this technology debuted with the HTC U12 Plus Android phone back in 2018. The ribbon triggers a taptic engine that we can find past the square mounting magnets. It's all tucked up into the back end where the eraser should be. The taptic engine makes it realistically feel like an actual button is getting clicked, even though there are no clicky buttons. It's a complex piece of engineering, and an interesting tool built for a very specific job. Some of my favorite tools, however, are my Mohs picks, which help us differentiate between different materials. The tandem OLED Apple is using this time around feels to be protected with glass, and since there are no marks left by my Mohs 2, 3, 4, or 5 picks, we can be sure that Apple is using a thin, tempered glass screen that scratches at a level 6 with deeper grooves at a level 7. The Mohs hardness is especially relevant this time around when we open up Apple's new Magic Keyboard. We already know that something at a softer level on Mohs scale of hardness cannot scratch any of the levels above it. A level 3 aluminum won't scratch a level 6 glass, and a level 6 glass will never scratch a level 10 diamond. However, this time around, Apple's Magic Keyboard is made from an anodized aluminum. The keys themselves are plastic. Anodization is necessary for material protection, aesthetics, and as well, there's a rather large 1% of the human population that has a bare aluminum contact allergy. We learned this while building wheelchairs at my factory. Bare aluminum is not like kryptonite or anything, it's more like a slow-motion poison ivy rash after extended contact, and the aluminum oxide anodizing top layer helps eliminate those reactions. F in chat for the F. But that same aluminum oxide coating also ranks at a level 9 on Mohs scale of hardness, which, when pressed right up against the level 6 glass display of the M4 iPad Pro, makes me worried. However, even though the metal is coming directly in contact with that glass, the Magic Keyboard hinge does not allow for any lateral movement, which reduces the abrasive potential. And to further decrease worries of accidental scratches, I took my level 9 anodized iPhone 15 and scuffed up the iPad glass as well as I could. But each of the marks wiped completely away. I imagine the surface lubricity of the anodizing and smoothness of the glass, along with the rigidness of the Magic Keyboard, will all help to keep the glass undamaged. So far, there doesn't appear to be anything to worry about. There's no glaring build quality issues yet. There's one 12-megapixel selfie camera tucked into the long side bezel of the iPad Pro, protected with the same scratch-resistant glass. And swinging our way up to the ultra-thin frame rails, we see we have a whole lot more anodized aluminum, along with the Apple Pencil dock and 2 metal volume buttons that cannot be removed. The top of the iPad Pro has 2 stereo speaker openings and a terribly placed center microphone hole. You'll see why in a second. Moving along to the other long flat side, Apple has removed the microphone hole in the center of this rail. Glad that's gone. And down here at the bottom of the M4 iPad, we can see that the thickness of the iPad is literally constrained by the tiny size of the USB-C port, which sits right between 2 more stereo speaker openings. If this thing gets any thinner, we'll have a camera bump and a charging port bump. Speaking of camera bumps, Apple's removed one of the camera lenses this year, and to be honest, no one's gonna notice. There's a lower time-of-flight 3D LiDAR scanner, and the upper circle is the only remaining 12-megapixel rear camera, with a single-color diffused LED flash, which is also tucked into the same camera hump. Now, one of my favorite parts of owning an iPad is its immense canvas for which I can display my artwork. Drawing on the tandem OLED seems oh so temporary, so I'll just use the back. I learned 2 new things recently. One, apples are made up of 25% air, which was news to me. And even more interesting, lions, like the anatomically correct beast you see here, actually eat apples. Yeah, they're carnivores and all that, but if they get hungry enough, apples are on the menu. You learn something new every day. To keep your own iPad from getting scratched, might I recommend my Teardown Skin collab with D-Brand. Astute observers might notice that this skin is the same teardown skin as last year. Because of course, we haven't seen the inside of the M4 yet, so how would I have a skin for it? But don't you worry, there's a very large probability that we'll see the insides in about 60 seconds, and then we can start shipping out the real deal. Link down in the description. The coolest part of the tandem OLED that I didn't mention before is that because of the double diodes, each pixel doesn't have to run at maximum load. Just like a person can walk farther than they can sprint, 2 pixels working together means that a single pixel doesn't have to work as hard. So overall, the screen uses less power while having a much longer lifespan, which is awesome. There also appears to be no effect on the 13-inch Ultra Retina display from my lighter, even after burning it for more than 60 seconds, so thumbs up for that. Finally, the bin test. No one's going to be putting their iPad Pro in their back pocket, obviously, but it will very much be bumping around in backpacks, book bags, and as Apple's thinnest product ever, we need to know how this Netflix machine is going to hold up to everyday life. When bent from the back, the answer is that it holds up surprisingly well, like suspicious black magic levels of structural integrity going on. You can see the glass screen literally ripple away from the frame, eliminating any water resistance, but all that hardware itself is still intact. Yeah, the M4 iPad Pro might be a bit bendy right out of the box, and will definitely not be straight after a few months of regular use, but that central spine is definitely providing enough structure for horizontal bends. I'm very impressed. Vertical bends, however, still not as wrecked as Drake, but holy macaroni, there's no recovering from this catastrophic failure right at the charging port. The M4 iPad Pro is now built like a rainbow, or bow and arrow, or a Boeing. Joke just made my life insurance go through the roof. Kind of like that wheel did, but the back side of the charging port itself is what put pressure on the inner side of that glass, cracking it up from the bottom edge. Which means now we get to go find the M4 chip. I do happen to have another smaller 11-inch M4 iPad Pro with the nano textured glass, so if this video gets 100,000 likes, we can see if that one also falls apart in the same place. If we roll back the glass like a very expensive tortilla, we can get our first look at that center spine, or cowling, that Apple added over the motherboard. This time around, we also have some very circular loudspeakers instead of rectangular, and with 14 Phillips head screws removed, Apple's cowling comes off in 2 pieces. It's incredibly thin, like the rest of the iPad, but obviously gets the job done. If Apple could add another more perpendicular spine running widthwise near the charging port, where all that structure was removed, this thing probably would have survived. And there you have it. The M4 chip in all of its glory, right alongside the 10,209 mAh pouch-style battery. Honestly, it's a pretty cool tablet. Congrats to Apple on the tandem OLED development. Let me know if I should test the smaller unit, and grab your teardown skin with the link in the description. Thanks done for watching. I'll see you around. Apple is using titanium on their newest iPhone 15 Pro Max. Titanium is the coolest metal on the planet for many reasons. It's biocompatible, used for creating artificial joints, repairing human bones, not to mention build interstellar spacecraft and to construct robots that crawl other planets. And of course, it's on my ring. My ring has titanium that I reclaimed from a wheelchair. Titanium comes in quite a few different flavors, grade 1 being the cheapest, softest, and easiest to machine, which is what I thought the iPhone was going to be. But then Apple slapped a grade 5 on the screen and I got rocked, in more ways than one. And let me show you why. I happen to have some 1-inch titanium bar stock laying around, as people often do. This guy costs $170. For example, this 6061 aluminum bar of the exact same proportions only cost me $10. Aluminum is what smartphones are normally made from, and the color difference between the two metals is glorious to behold, especially as it's heated. The main reason my jerry-rig knife is only $15 is because I'm using an aluminum alloy and not a titanium alloy. And keep in mind, this solid rod is only grade 2 titanium. I'm too poor to buy a full rod of grade 5 titanium, since a single notepad-sized paper-thick sliver already costs $106 all by itself. If we do some simple math and scale this 0.5 mm thick piece of metal up to a hypothetical 8.5 mm block, thick enough to mill a phone out of, we would be looking at almost $2,000 worth of grade 5 titanium. And that's not even including the complexity of milling and shaping grade 5 and the dollars worth of iPhone hardware that goes inside. So the math just ain't mathin', and there's no way Apple suddenly decided to make negative profit on each iPhone sold. You might have noticed that titanium reacts in a very unique way as it gets torched, oxidizing in extremely predictable and consistent rainbows, going from yellow to purple to blue to light blue and back to gray again as it gets really hot. You might be thinking to yourself, hey Jerry, are you even gonna unbox the iPhone? And I say yes. Let's jump in and see what this iPhone is made from, and also how well it can handle the heat of everyday life. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let's get started. Inside the brand new iPhone 15 Pro Max box, we find the phone itself. This blue titanium is almost the same shade as the blued titanium that I made. Looking under the phone, this time we find there's no lightning cable. Instead, we have a brand new braided USB-C cable. I imagine the world will soon follow Apple's lead on this one, and we'll start seeing this port everywhere. Probably the closest thing we'll ever see to world peace. And honestly, the phone does feel good, about the same as any other rectangular phone. But the brushed titanium and the etched back glass do feel super cool. But the imitation blue shade is just ever so much off from the actual shade of blued titanium that I think it would bother me long term. Apple said again that this screen glass is the strongest glass ever on a smartphone. They call it ceramic shield, and I agree, it is a pretty solid slab of glass. We normally see plastic screens scratch at a level 2 or 3, glass at 5 or 6, and sapphire would be an 8 or 9. This dual ion exchange ceramic shield does still scratch at a level 6, with deeper grooves at a level 7, but level 6 does appear to be quite a bit more faint than usual. And I do think Apple is onto something with this proprietary glass. The front selfie camera is tucked into the dynamic island and is protected by that same slab of glass. The earpiece is a razor-thin slit between the glass and the frame. No speaker grills to fall out or get dirty. Making our way over to the titanium sides, Apple's using something called a PVD coating, a physical vapor deposition. It's a pretty wild method of applying an ultra-thin protective layer over the titanium. I don't know enough about PVD to talk about it in depth, but you know, it is scratchable. Exactly like the anodized aluminum. Everything except for this 5G antenna slot. For some reason this oval is just not scratching. I think they should make a whole phone out of whatever this stuff is. The power button is scratchable, however, and not removable, along with the top and entire left side. It took Apple 14 hours to apply this finish, and my jerry-rig knife 14 seconds to unapply the finish. The new action button is scratchable, and our USB-C port down near the bottom is an actual USB 3 with 10 gigabit transfer speeds. The regular iPhone 15 is just USB 2, and if you don't know what that means, you'll be just fine with either. The matte back glass, which every phone should have, does not scratch. The Apple logo in the center is the only thing that's smooth. One thing that Apple did change up quite a bit this year is with the cameras. We still get that gradual gradient built into the tinted glass that rises up to the camera plateau, and some of these camera upgrades we won't be able to see until the teardown. But Apple says these 3 lenses that we can see are actually 7. Gotta LOL a bit at that absolute stretch. Here at the bottom we have a 48 megapixel main camera, which apparently has a nanoscale coating on the lens to reduce glare. The coating luckily does not scratch off or fracture. The coolest camera is definitely the middle one, a 12 megapixel 5x tetra prism telephoto lens that redirects and reflects light 4 times before hitting a 3D sensor shift OIS stabilizer. If there's one reason to take apart the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it's to see what in the world that looks like from the inside. Then up top we have a 12 megapixel ultrawide. Apparently, these 2 cameras on the edge can work together like 2 eyeballs to generate spatial video, which I don't want to be the guy to beat a dead horse, but that was something Android did 12 years ago with the HTC Evo 3D. Probably before some of you kidlets with iPhones were even born. Gotta honor your ancestors. Apple said during their event that the back glass panel is easily removable to facilitate repairability, which is a huge commendable move. And then in the same sentence, Apple said that the internal structure of the iPhone 15 Pro Max is made from 100% recycled aluminum, which immediately tells us 2 things. The iPhone 15 Pro Max has a 6.7-inch OLED display with 2000 nits of outdoor brightness and 120 Hz refresh rate, and lasts for about infinity seconds before having no reaction to my lighter. Nice work, Apple. We'll try out my big boy lighter in a second. It's time to see if the new blended aluminum titanium grafted hybrid structure compromises the structural integrity of the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I did not see that one coming. You've been watching me durability test smartphones for about 11 years now, and most phones do not break. iPhones especially do not break, like ever. And that snap was abnormally quick. Kinda stunned. I'm not sure if it's because the grade 5 titanium frame has nearly 3 times more tensile strength than aluminum, or half the elasticity, but the glass did not like being pressed or flexed by my thumb. That's crazy. On the first bend, too. Internally, the phone itself is doing fine, of course. There's no cracking or shattering of the frame, but the back glass is definitely obliterated. Good thing Apple made the glass modular, so it only cost $200 to replace instead of $500, but still. If I was a person who just purchased a $1,200 titanium iPhone 15 Pro Max, I would be extremely nervous right now. Anyway, I did not plan on that happening, but you gotta admit, the crack looks pretty cool. The Apple iPhone 15 Pro Max does not survive my durability test, which means it's time for the big boy lighter. The PVD coating is already an imitation blue, which would make any actual bluing of the titanium frame very difficult to see. But if we sand it down and expose some bare titanium, we might be able to see if Apple's grade 5 reacts the same way as my grade 5. That's some pretty good looking brushed titanium. Still not sure why it takes Apple 14 hours. I'm using a MAP gas torch, which I think, along with burning my desk, is actually lighting some of the titanium dust on fire. You can see the sparks glow white as they sputter away from the phone. Now, the titanium itself could probably handle the heat, but the screen and the phone circuitry, not so much. The torch definitely accomplishes what my lighter could not. And if we look super close at the iPhone frame, we can see it start to change colors from the heat. Apple is indeed using real titanium. Is it grade 5 though? I do have ways of finding out. I think it's getting kinda hot in here. Now, everyone knows the whole point of getting a new iPhone is so that everyone knows you have a new iPhone. Hiding it in a black plastic case would wholly and entirely defeat the purpose. And wow, side note, natural titanium is the move for sure. However, getting a transparent case to show off your phone is dangerous, since most clear cases are made of thermoplastic polyurethane, which when exposed to ultraviolet radiation undergoes the irreversible process of photooxidation. Sunlight makes clear cases turn yellow. So on the off chance you ever do go outside, you won't have a clear case anymore. Enter my channel sponsor dbrand. dbrand has inexplicably found a way to defeat the sun with their never yellowing, completely transparent ghost case. And they're offering free replacements if it ever does yellow, which is pretty brave of them. The best part is the ghost case is also completely compatible with my teardown skin. You can keep your own phone from getting absolutely wrecked like mine with the link down in the description. Now, I pride myself on being extremely thorough, and I'd be amiss if we let this golden opportunity to check the back glass of the regular iPhone 15 Pro for similar structural deficiencies as its larger counterpart. With some very strong bends from the back, nothing happens. Flipping the phone over to the front, again, nothing happens. The normal-sized iPhone 15 Pro survives and does not have the same fate as the Max. I'm curious to see how thin Apple's titanium layer actually is, and what grade it is. The iPhone 15 Pro Max teardown is going to be quite a bit more destructive than usual. Thank you for subscribing, and thank you for watching. I'll see you around.
Part 8 Bending Smartphones Crack or Solid.
Stay tuned next time for part 22, and we're not gonna have any CD-ROMs in here. Like, we're gonna try doing it without the CD-ROMs, because if I end up putting in like a CD-ROM in this again, the computer is gonna crash. Like after an amount of time, like after a matter of time. So anyway, that will be it. Stay tuned next time for part 22, which in case we will not do any more CD-ROM stuff for the rest of the walkthrough. So yeah. And we will shorten the amount of parts for this walkthrough to 25. Just like what we did with, it's going to be like, it's the same amount of parts for, the 2019 edition of the Dell Dimension 4600 walkthrough. So yeah. Thank you, viewers, for watching. This is Colton Tackett on Sonic Boom Fan 101 signing off. Excuse me, viewers. As I was saying, this is Colton Tackett on Sonic Boom Fan 101 signing off. And this computer better not crash again. See you guys next time. Peace out.